Spiel. I'm Mathieu from Ludovox, and today we are on the What's Your Game booth. Inside the What's Your Game booth at Essen Spiel with Aaron Haag. Hi, Aaron.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. So you are the designer of the latest entry in the What's Your Game brand, and it's Loot Island.
Yes. Loot Island is a bit of an unusual game for What's Your Game, because it's not such a heavyweight, big box game. It's a smaller box and an easier to play game. It's not necessarily a family game because it has some challenges, but it's not the usual kind of What's Your Game game.
And you can play it from 2 players up to 5 players, right?
That is correct. It's 2 to 5 players, and it takes about 30 minutes to 60 minutes, depending on the number of players.
So what's the goal of the game? Who are we as players, as characters?
Right. We are actually treasure hunters. We have pieces of a treasure map. These are these cards. And we have a treasure island where we are looking for treasures which were buried by pirates several hundred years ago. Now the important thing is that the island is cursed. So all the treasures we are finding will have curses as well. That is why the pirates actually did hide their treasures on this island. We're using these map cards to build a line of cards on the landings of in total 8 landings here, and when there are sufficient cards, depending on the number of players, it's the number of players plus 1, we will find treasures. And as I said, these treasures are cursed. Here we have some treasures, and they all have a value. These are coins, a bag of coins, which has a value of 5 gold coins. These are jewels, which have a value of 4, but they also come with curses. And when we take the treasure, we also have to take the number of curses that are put on there. But we are not allowed to have too many curses, because then we are cursed ourselves. So whoever has 13 curses or more at the end of the game is out of the game. So does not score any of the treasures found. So you have to take a careful balance of taking valuable treasures and not getting too many curses. Yeah? That's why if you take a treasure, you also take the curse, but you can say, I don't take the treasure, I keep it hidden in the island, then you are allowed to give away 2 of your curses instead. This is the balance you have to take between curses and treasures. We have several different kinds of treasures, in total 6. Some are sets, for example the jewels, you get extra points if you have 2 jewels or 3 jewels. Some are majority oriented, so if you have the most of some of the treasures, you get extra points for those.
So can you give me an overview of what we do in a play turn?
Each player has, at the beginning of the game and at the beginning of every round, 7 cards, hand cards, and when it's your turn you have 3 options. You can either play cards of a single color to one of these landings. When you do so, you take one of your tokens, your compass tokens, to signal that you have placed cards there. You are participating in that treasure hunt at that landing. It's important that you're only allowed to use 1 landing. So when it's your turn, you place cards at 1 landing. You place cards of only 1 color, and they must be in ascending order, not necessarily without gaps. So it could be 7-10 instead of 7-8 like we have here, but they need to be in ascending order.
And what are those stars? Are they wild cards?
These are wild cards, a star. These are, unfortunately, yeah. I can play a star here, a green star here. And that's not a 9. And you don't have a choice. It's the value of the previous card. So that's an 8. So you can play an additional 8. There are two cards with the same number of each color. So there are 2 8s, and that could be then an 8. That is an 8, and another 8 can be played there as well.
Okay. Other question. So when does the game end? Do we have a set of rounds?
We have a fixed number of rounds. For each round, we have a special event card that helps us in tracking the number of rounds we've played. And the event cards are just very slight rule changes which are applicable to all players. So it doesn't favor a particular player, but it affects all players in an equal way. So for every round, we flip a card, and then once that round is finished, we take the card and the next one is flipped. After 5 rounds, the game ends. I said that one option is to play cards here. We also have small islands. These are here. These allows you to play also cards of the same color. You need to play 2 cards of the same color on one of the small islands, and then you can use the special ability of that island. You flip it, and for that round, nobody else can use that ability.
So this one was losing 2 curses, taking a treasure, and discarding, and taking a curse, moving your token.
Not necessarily moving, but you, as I said before, you can only place your token when you place a card. At least 1 card. You can place as many as you will. Here you can place your token without playing a card. So if you see there is a row which will probably get a lot of treasures, you may want to use that action to place your token there.
Drawing 2 cards, moving the ship. So what is the ship?
The ship means this. Wherever the ship points to, these are the 2 rows which are actually, or the 2 landings which are actually evaluated at the end of the round, once all players have passed. Passing is the third option where a player has. Once all players have passed, we evaluate the length, which is, as I said, in a 4-player game, it would be a minimum of 5 cards. And then we evaluate how many treasures are revealed, and then players start to select. How many treasures are revealed is actually important, because there are big loots and small loots. The row of cards, which is the longer one, is the big loot. The big loot means you always get 1 treasure for each of the tokens, plus 1 treasure for each of the cards which has a chest, a treasure chest. Unfortunately, no, here we have one. They not all have treasure chests. Right, the small loot, only the treasure chests count. So it can happen that the small loot actually yields no treasures at all. So what happens? Here, for example, in this example, let's take this example. We have to add another card. We have 5 cards for a 4-player game. That would yield, if there are no cards here, it would yield 6 treasures. 4 here, plus the 2 here. So you reveal 6 treasures. And that is why it is important to have these tokens there. You select the treasures in the sequence of this stack, starting at the bottom. So blue takes a treasure, red takes a treasure, and so on. Here, you can, if you take that action, red could, for example, say, but I'm at the bottom. You move your token to the bottom of the stack.
Okay, so what are those characters here? Do they stock curses?
No, they don't stop curses. At the beginning of the game, you select one of these characters, and this is the color you're playing. So we have blue, yellow, red, black, and white. And every player starts off with 3 curses. Yeah?
I have questions about you as a designer. So why design games, and specifically management games? Like Union that I played was a management game. This is kind of a management game. It's not a race game. It's not an adventure game. Why a design game and why design management games?
Okay, designing games. Why do I design games? I've been a player of board games since nearly 30 years now. And when I retired a few years ago, I said, now I have the time to actually design a game. And the game I want to design is something which is very interactive. Let's say, your action is affecting the other players to a certain degree, and it's not this analysis paralysis thing, and you have some influence to what the other players are doing. So you have to, on the one hand, you can do things which they don't like, and you can prevent things that other players may want to do to hurt you. So this is what I mean by having interaction between the players. So you don't build something for your own and try to be the best. This is, to me, more like working with an Excel sheet and finding a good business case with an Excel sheet. You don't need other players. I like this kind of interaction and interdependency between the players. So I thought, okay, now I have the time. Let's start with designing a game. I have played so many hundreds of games, so I should know how to do it. And I can tell you, it is a very difficult task to design a game which actually works in the end and people like.
So I assume that you've played countless different games. Do you have a few favorites that lasted over the years, or something that you've seen this year in the recent years that you really liked and digged?
Yeah, my favorite game is actually 1830 by Avalon Hill. Or Lookout re-released it about 4 years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago. This is a management game. It's a bit of a cutthroat financial stock dealing game, and I like that very much. On the other hand, there is a very light game which we often play as a game at the end of an evening when everybody is tired, and that is Bluff, or the English version is Liar's Dice. Yeah, that is also very interactive, and that's why I like these kinds of games. Recent years, I must admit, I'm playing less and less because I'm more concentrating now on designing games, and as you can imagine, you have hundreds of playtest sessions with your games, and I burden my players in the area of, I'm coming from Munich, in the area of Munich, by bringing my prototypes and say, hey, can we play this? Which they often don't like so much, because they say, but we've had Essen and we have 50 new games, can we play these? But so I have to concentrate on playing my own games.
So why go to an Italian publisher and not a German publisher?
That's an interesting question. I never. Actually, the story behind this game is when I had designed it. It had a different theme. It was not a pirate theme. It was originally it was called Diggers, and it was dwarves digging for jewels. But the basic concept was the same. When I had it finished, from my point of view finished, there was a lot of work I did together with a publisher. I thought, hey, this is something which fits exactly in the range of what's your game? And people said, hey, it doesn't fit at all. Look at Madeira and all the heavy other games. And I said, but look at Oddville. They have also the small line of simpler games. And when I talked to Mariano, he said, yes, that could be interesting. And he found it interesting in the end, and we had a contract.
That was a perfect match. So good analysis on your part. Thank you, Aaron, for that overview of Loot Island, for your presentation as an author, and see you on Lootbox. Bye bye.